Hello everyone, Justin with Deep Dive Stocks here, and this is your opening hours market dive for September 14th. And we're going to take a look at things as futures open. We'll take a quick peek at crypto to kind of get a glimpse of how things are starting to position themselves for the week ahead. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Let's get started on Bitcoin. Over the weekend, it seems the bear trap tried to recover with bullish liquidity, but recent times the LDPM L6 resistance has proved too great, and right now it looks like Bitcoin is being rejected off of LDPM L6, although it currently still has bullish liquidity, so we do expect another attempt at taking LDPM L6 or crossing over LDPM L6. The thing to keep an eye out for will be a return of bearish liquidity, which would then put expectations down at LDPM L7. If we take a quick, so that's the daily. So, over the next week or so, if we take a quick peek at the 15-minute, it's pretty interesting as we see that there were 3 bull traps this weekend, all of which failed. So we have this bull trap here, this bull trap here, and this bull trap here. The most recent looks like it was rejected off of LDPM L6, and the result has been this bearish liquidity. And we've currently just moved through LDPM L5 as well. So actually pretty bearish on the near term. So probably up until market open, maybe even into Monday, some pretty bearish prints. But on that daily, we still see bullish prints. So we expect for maybe the next week up to maybe a month, we should still see continued recovery back to that LDPM resistance. And so it'll just be a situation to monitor. So definitely keeping an eye out for any, but then, we're definitely gonna have to keep an eye out for, so as that 15-minute bearish liquidity kind of matures, we're gonna have to keep an eye out for, to make sure that the candles on the daily don't turn bearish as well. Right? As long as the daily turns bearish, then our longer term outlook is recovering. If we move to ES futures, we see that on the daily, futures opened up with a bearish print. So we see that we have this aggressive ask that has stepped in, and we get another print of bearish liquidity. So on the daily, this suggests that we are en route to LDPM L7 support, which is currently at 6,423. How much percent is that? About 2.5%. And so that will be the likely outcome in the next few days to week. If we move into the 15-minute to see how things are progressing, zoomed in, we also have bearish liquidity. It looks like spot has just moved below LDPM L7 with that bearish liquidity. And so it does look like on the near term and on the more long term, bearish outlooks are growing abundant. So we'll keep an eye out on the 15-minute, especially as more markets open. But yeah, it looks pretty reasonably a little bearish. The NASDAQ 100, these futures opened up with bullish liquidity, which is pretty nice. So we have less weakness noted on the NASDAQ futures. If we zoom into the 15, we see we have bullish liquidity as well. LDPM L5 looks to be well situated at, right about spot at 24,089. So even if spot does need support, it looks like LDPM L5 and even LDPM L7 and even LDPM L6 are well positioned to supply that support. So NASDAQ looks bullish, but it looks like so far Bitcoin and ES futures are leaning on the bearish side. For gold futures, we have bullish liquidity as well. Looks like we developed bullish liquidity, moved through these LDPM resistances, and so now we have this stagnating price. And okay, we're just looking for like any of the scoops or waves, which we don't really see. So we have this stagnating price, which is not bearish in and of itself, but it does suggest maybe a little bit another bullish surge, another injection of bullish liquidity is required, and these occur at those at the supports, and that is about 5.6% down currently. Should spot need it. Let's zoom into the 15-minute to see what local conditions are like, and it looks pretty bearish. So we had bullish liquidity going into the weekend. We failed this bull trap, and then we reject, we get bearish liquidity, and now it looks like LDPM L6 is hanging on for dear life, or rather spot is hanging on to LDPM L6 for dear life, but with this bearish liquidity, we do unfortunately expect LDPM L6 to fail. So definitely near-term bearish outlooks, even though on the daily it wasn't bearish per se, but spot down is a likely outcome to test that support. But again, per LDPM and LDPS, that wouldn't be bearish as long as LDPS paints those candles green while that's happening, because then we know it'll likely touch the support and then bounce back up. So it's just more about taking the scenic route. If we move to silver, we see on the daily they are bullish as well. Should a bullish surge be needed, a little injection of bullish liquidity, we see that LDPM L5 support is about 7.25% down, currently located at $39.62, 621 of a cent. Yeah, that's about right. If we zoom into the 15-minute, we see a nice little, looks like we won't see like a big aggressive bid complex, but we do see a little bit of that wave going on. So we had this bullish liquidity Thursday. We got another injection of bullish liquidity Thursday at around 8 p.m. with LDPM L5. Things bounced up, briefly became bearish, fell into that little liquidity gap between 5 and 6. Bullish liquidity recovered, but then ultimately looks like we failed to overtake LDPM L5 as a part of that bullish surge. The liquidity then turned to bearish, and so far that's where we're at as well. So with this continued bearish liquidity, then we expect LDPM L6 to be tested next. I'm not going to say those numbers anymore. And then if bearish liquidity continues, then LDPM L7. This is still a bear trap, so that tells us that although those expectations are still sound, we should keep an eye out for some more rapid than usual reversions. So keeping a close eye to make sure bullish liquidity doesn't sneak back in is going to be paramount. So if this goes down to LDPM L7, so that'll be just, all right. So we should we'll get a heads up before, this looks a little aggressive ASCII actually. So whenever you start seeing all those LDPMs just kind of starting to behave in unison, that's when I put these guys on to see if it definitely looks like an aggressive ask walking in. So, and this is on the daily. So definitely worth keeping an eye on the 15. I would say LDPM L7, if spot touches LDPM L7 with bearish liquidity, then I would definitely start looking at the daily with some suspicion that this is definitely a maturing aggressive ask cascade if we don't even outright get a big spike. So definitely looks like some pretty substantial profit taking on silver then. So, all right, that's the pre-hours market dive, opening hours market dive. To recap, we have Bitcoin on the daily is looking soft bullish. We expect it to retest LDPM L6 as a part of its bullish liquidity, but we do see that it rejected. And if we dig a little deeper into the 15-minute, we see that things are pretty bearish overall, especially even the LDPM stack. So 3 failed bull traps, 1 outright rejection, and current bearish liquidity do paint a little bit of a bearish picture for the next day or two for Bitcoin. ES futures is similar. We saw on that on the daily soft bearish print, first print, and then in zooming in, we see that the bearish liquidity is echoed by way of already falling through LDPM L7. NASDAQ was looking pretty bullish, but it looks like it is going to be testing LDPM L5 support. But as long as the bullish liquidity is maintained, we expect that to be a nice little bounce. Gold as well, pretty bearish, especially on the 15. We have that bearish liquidity is already fallen through LDPM L6, so definitely going to be something to keep an eye out for. And silver on the 15-minute as well in the pre-opening hours with its bearish liquidity. So near term, it looks like most things have bearish liquidity that we looked at. I mean, we only looked at like 5 things, but 5 big things, I guess. But bearish liquidity on the short term. Some evidence of more long-standing bullish liquidity is present on the daily, but for the near-term forecast, for the next day at least, or even two, it looks like the name of the game is bearish liquidity. So, all right, guys, that is me with Deep Dive Stocks, and I hope this was enjoyable, fun, educational, and if it was, let me know, and if it wasn't, just let me know also, and I will see you guys next time. Adios.